Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. In the comics, TV, and movies, we go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to Cairo, Egypt, in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the man without fear, Chris.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Brent.
Alliance Assemble.
Assemble.
Volume 106. Well, we're recording live on the eve of preview night for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse and Madness. But when this drops on audio, if you're listening on audio, the day has arrived.
Yes, I'm very, very excited for this. This time tomorrow, but from the time we're recording, by 24 hours, I will be basically on my way home or just getting home from the theater from seeing it for the first time.
Yeah, my showings are 6:45, so 7:15, 2-hour movie. So my show will just hopefully be coming to an end, maybe one or two post-credit scenes in the middle of something.
Perfect.
So, but yeah, we are very excited. But yeah, so we are going live tonight because of the movie review. So we want to thank DC Alliance for letting us kind of take their Superman Lois spot going live. So we want to appreciate them and thank them, both Clay and Travis, for letting us kind of take over this to talk about Moon Knight season finale and a couple of news items. So hopefully, we have some, I think we have some thoughts on this series finale, and some people are saying maybe it's a season finale. We hope, but right now we're going to go with the idea of a series finale. They could always change their mind, right?
Well, hope. Have faith, right?
Faith, Alfred, faith.
It's the hope that kills you. Oh,
yeah. Jeez. All right, well then, on that note, let's do the network plugs. So, as you all know, we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance network with 8 shows. On Mondays, we've got Ranger Alliance alternating bi-weekly with Slice of Film. On Tuesdays, we got DC Alliance. Wednesdays, we got Superhero Discussions. Thursdays, Star Wars Alliance. Fridays, Marvel Alliance. And I walk through the multiverse bi-weekly on Saturdays, and my show, World's Finest True Believers, going monthly on the last Sunday of the month. That will return at the end of this month on that Sunday. And if you want to catch any of these shows live, you can, if you subscribe to the Geekverse YouTube podcast channel, you can catch DC Alliance live on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Star Wars Alliance live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this show typically live on Thursdays at 9:10 Eastern Standard Time. And those 3 shows also have their solo feed separate from the GUA feed. So if you just want to listen to some of those shows separate from the GUA feed, we got that option there for you. We also have a Patreon. So if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we have 2 tiers. $1 tier is our tip jar to say, hey, you think we're doing a good job. And then we've got our $5 tier, which gives you early access episodes, ad-free episodes, and Patreon exclusive shows. Last week, we dropped the 4th episode of We Can Watch This All Day, looking at the Incredible Hulk. So, this month, I think it's in a couple of weeks, we record episode 5, right, on Iron Man 2?
Yeah, that's about right. Because I'm now that I'm done my Doctor Strange prep, I need to get my Iron Man 2 rewatch in there. So I'm ready to go. That one just feels a little easier, I'll just say, because it's, 1.
Clay's commenting on your lighting, Brent. Are you from the DC universe?
On my lighting? I am dark this. I don't know. I'm definitely not from the DC universe. My normal light is on, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, we could always check that out. So hope you're enjoying all the good Patreon content we've got coming at you. So we want to thank our patrons. We definitely cannot do this without your support. So if you are interested in getting all that extra content, make sure you go to www.patreon.com/GUA network and subscribe and get all that lovely content at the $5 tier. But if you can't join us on Patreon, we totally understand. If you can take a few 30 to 90 seconds and rate and review the Marvel Alliance feed and or the Geek Ultimate Alliance feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcatcher a choice may be. And last but not least, we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com, for our omnibus collected edition and hardcover needs. JP and the crew at OPB have got the best packaging in the business, ships around the world, excellent customer service. This is the current final order cutoff, looking at the Marvel solicits. We've got War of Kings, very timely with our comic book club. The conclusion of the modern cosmic trilogy, War of Kings, is coming back into print after many years. Silver Surfer by Dan Slott and Michael Allred is coming back into print. That's it's a very storied run that people have been waiting for a while.
It's a good one.
Yep. Secret Wars, that was on one of our choices, is coming back into print after a long stint out of print. Wolverine Omnibus Volume 3, first time ever that is going into print. So a lot of good stuff coming at you. And if you think about you might be wanting to order this stuff, use that code MARVELGUA at checkout for $2 off every single order. Again, a limited amount of time, saved a little bit on those book prices. We want to thank Organic Price Books for being our official sponsor. Yeah, I got a few things coming in before I showed off in the group, but I'll figure showed off here. Mighty Thor, Jane Foster cover. Looking forward to the part one of this lovely run. As we got a movie coming out that could be like this, right?
It seems familiar. Familiar. We're actually really close to that. It's not far away.
Exactly.
If you really think about it, it's like, we're just over 2 months, away, something like that.
And it wouldn't be Happy May the 4th be with you without a Star Wars book summoning and Darth Vader by Kieran Gillen. So
this is the way.
Yep, this is the way. This is the only way. So, but again, thank you all, Organic Price Books, for again being our sponsor. So, all right, we're gonna start off with we got do before a little bit of sad news to share. At that point, we do remind everyone that again we are going live again this week with our Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness spoiler-filled review on Friday at 9:10 Eastern Standard Time. We've got a panel of hosts across the GUA. We've got Clay, we've got Travis Hines, we've got Joe and Katie joining us for this breakdown of what is going to be very interesting to see how the multiverse can further change, shape, and just how much crazier it can get.
We'll find out.
Yep, definitely. So join us there, and the audio will drop on Saturday morning. I want to thank Joe and Walk Through the Multiverse for kind of his week is this Saturday, but he graciously allowed us to take over that slot for this Saturday, and his next new episode will come next Saturday. So thank you, Joe, for punting that for 1 week for Doctor Strange. We appreciate that. And but all right, but before we get into Moon Knight, we do have a sad thing we want to recognize is this last week, towards the end of the week, sad news that Neil Adams, the amazing artist, had passed away. Just a amazing man. Some of the runs, redefining Batman for a new generation, dark and gritty. One of my favorite, one of his most storied creations was Ra's or Ra's al Ghul, depending on how you pronounce it. And one of my other favorite ones from his DC years was hard traveling heroes with Green Arrow and Green Lantern, kind of bringing kind of social commentary to the comic book age.
Yes, he's truly a legend in comic books, and for me, that Green Lantern, Green Arrow, hard traveling heroes is always the very first thing I think of, just because I love the character of Green Lantern so much. It's not with me, it's in the other room, but I have a really nice hardcover collection of that, and it's just, it's great stories filled with just beautiful art, and that's what I think of first when I think of Neil Adams. Obviously, he has done so much more than that one specific run, but for me, that's always the first work I think of.
Yeah, and a lot of things. One of the biggest things he may not be known for outside of the art is his big campaign for getting rights and royalties to the creators. Namely, he was a big proponent and kind of behind the scenes worker to get the creators of Superman, paid for what they were, just so much, and the Heroes Initiative and everything like that. But he was so instrumental in making sure the creators of some of our most beloved characters were given respect, but also payment for what it is, and did not have any problem with telling it how it is at that point. But definitely a plug for this weekend, Batman on Batman, Kevin Smith's podcast. They actually did a 5-hour supercut of all his interviews that he had done with Neil Adams and the stories he tells. I mean, the man, he may have been an artist, but man, the stories he tells in those 5 hours are pretty amazing. So,
I never got to meet him, but I saw him at my local convention multiple times.
mhm.
He always had just one of the biggest booths filled with just amazing artwork surrounding him that he had done, and always, every single time I would walk past it, just a huge line of people. They're excited to meet him, which is pretty cool. And I'm feeling some regret that I never had the chance to directly meet him. I should have taken my Hard Traveling Heroes book and had him sign it. So that's definitely a mistake on my part. But he will definitely be finally remembered and missed as well.
No, definitely. I never had the opportunity, but definitely enjoyed hearing the stories and reading the interviews he would give. But there's also a great thread that his son posted about just when people would ask the question, "What's it like being Neil Adams' son?" Really heartfelt thread. So definitely look that up. But thank you, Neil, for everything you've done. You will always be a legend, and your contributions not only to the characters we love, but also to the industry as a whole will be remembered forever. So rest in peace, Neil. All right. So not necessarily an easy transition, but let us head into the final episode of Moon Knight. So, Brent, what are your some of your non-spoiler thoughts for this final episode?
Sure, non spoiler. I would say ultimately that this was the series. I talked about this a bit last week that I was most concerned with going into it. And by that I mean that they had so much to do. I felt like the runtime was going to need to be north of an hour. I looked back; most of the episodes were in the like 47 to 53ish minute ballpark. And then there were these reports of, it's really only going to be like 42, 43 minutes. I'm like, that kind of hurts. I don't like that. I was hoping they were wrong, but they were from credible sources. Sure enough, that was the runtime. That said, I still appreciated what we got. I feel like overall, I do think they stuck the landing. Is it the best episode of the show? No, I'm still giving that to last week's episode 5. But I appreciated what we got to see Mark do in this. I appreciated what we got to see Layla do in this. There was some awesome Moon Knight action. There's a few surface level questions I had, and then upon watching a second time, I was able to answer those. I'm sure we'll talk about them as they come up. Overall, I guess I have one big complaint, and that's the same thing I complained about with What If for every single episode. For if you're new to the show, since we did our What If review, I talked about it then quite a bit. Just the runtime. I just felt like they had these great characters, these great stories, the great ideas, fun action. They just needed a few more minutes to just flesh it out a little bit more. I feel like 5 more minutes would have gone a long ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will definitely say this is the weakest episode of the series, in my opinion. Still had a lot of things I liked about it, but I agree with you. The runtime definitely kind of affected. It was definitely going to feel a little rushed. Um, Left a lot opened. The fighting sequences that we see towards the end of the episode were really cool, especially with kind of how we get back to what we've been kind of waiting for at that point. Um, Character development, kind of some finality with it. I think there's still some questions that I hope we do get a chance to pick back up wherever we see Moon Knight and Mark Spector and the other personalities next. But all in all, a okay ending in my opinion. The show as a whole, I'm still trying to wrestle with it. How this season finale, and I'll probably come to some conclusion by the end of how did this, since I deemed it kind of the weakest episode, how much does it bring down my kind of opinion on where the show kind of ranks? Does one episode ruin the whole thing? No, I wouldn't say that for me. I do think it's one that I will have to revisit as a whole, knowing kind of how this all shapes up. But I would say kind of an okay episode. I still think it to your point, it kind of either it needs a few extra minutes. In my opinion, it may have an extra episode here, maybe one or two more episodes would have kind of fleshed out a little bit more and made it maybe a stronger ending to bring down. So,
well, that the episode count, which really isn't directly related, but that's something we were talking about earlier with Snell. It's like I do kind of feel like Marvel's stuck on this 6 episode idea for the longer, for what they call the longer episodes, like, you know, like your
Hmm.
40+ minute ones. Obviously What If and WandaVision both had 9 episodes. What If was originally going to have 10 even. But I feel like I want them to play around with that a bit more. Does this one need
Yeah.
7? Does that one only need 5? You know, like I feel like 6 is a good solid number. You can get a good story. It's a plenty of length of time. You don't
Mhm.
always need that long, and sometimes you need more. Maybe at some point, I feel like just being on a streamer, you know, it's different when everything was like broadcast TV and you had to have 20 to 22 episodes. I'm like, no, let's, if the story needs an extra one, let's do the extra one.
Yeah, but we'll have to see. You know, we talked about how Feige in the beginning said that, you know, would be kind of going with this and going with a little bit, kind of seeing where it was, but no one's asked the question yet. So hopefully, maybe someone will soon and see what if they're really truly stuck in the 6 episodes when it comes to the live action shows. So,
Mm-hmm.
but all right. So before we get in spoiler talk, if you have not watched Moon Knight, stop here and make sure that you can you can watch it and then come back to us at that point. So I'm going to take our first ad break. So again, listeners, if you you know, these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance network. We only get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. So I'm going to give you that 3 count to turn that volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. I do notice a person from our OPB streams, Top Gun. It's the ASMR voice
Okay, I was
guy.
like, what is that? ASMR voice guy, huh? All right, all right.
Yep. Nice to have you here, Top Gun. All right, so spoiler talk. Well, as we always do, let's, you know, kind of look at the episode. Like this episode, it kind of seems like dur, but there has been so much foreshadowing throughout the previous 5 episodes to get us to this moment, from all the Easter eggs, everything here to get us to this moment. I mean, just like I said, I would like to watch this again just from beginning to end, just to kind of see exactly picking them all out again. But the episode opens last week. We got the Marvel fanfare in the title. This time we get opening up with the song The End by Earl Grant. And we pick up where we left Mark when he was shot. And we get it from the perspective of Arthur Harrow and what was going on there. What did you kind of think of that, seeing that from his perspective?
Yeah, you know, I kind of liked it. One thing about this show is like they do kind of they try to play with, and we talked about it last week a lot, like the trope of whether or not this is all real and stuff. And it's like, well, it's all real to the Marvel universe anyway. Like we're, because otherwise we would be seeing things that like he would not know about, right? Like so it's like, well, what he it's unless he's just imagining what Arthur Harrow is doing. But overall, yeah, I mean, good place to open up. It's like it feels like it's been so long since we watched Mark get shot, because it happened, you know, towards the end of episode 4, and then all of episode 5, and then now. So it does, like, we went back to that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels like so long ago. But no, I
Yeah.
thought it was a good place to open up.
Yeah, especially like what he says to him, saying, you know, I'm sorry it had to be this way, Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, or whoever else is in there.
Yeah, yeah.
And his staff transforms into having an ancient Egyptian axe, which does remember one of the weapons that Moon Knight does wield in the comics. Layla is there trying to hide. And as Arthur and his men leave, she takes the scarab, and then it transitions to Harrow and his caravan getting stopped by the police,
Mhm.
and he comes out saying, "No, no, no, it's okay," and then whips out the staff, and it's got some whole new power set, and all these police are judged to be unworthy, and one is left behind who is quote unquote worthy. And I've been kind of thinking about this, and I think I've said it before in some of our episodes when we've seen Harrow use this of who is worthy, who is not. I'm really thinking that these necessarily, the people that are quote unquote worthy, are not necessarily good people, but they're those that Amit are useful to Amit's cause.
I think that might, I think that makes a lot of sense. You could definitely infer that there are people who would be more likely, more susceptible to going along with what Amit is trying to do.
Hmm. So Layla has snuck aboard it, and she's about to try to kill Harriet, but who surprisingly tries to stop her?
Tarouet, or however you say there. I
Yep,
still
Tarouet.
struggle with that. Tarouet, and I thought that was a pretty cool scene. You know, it like to me it kind of made sense. Like Layla, she's got her face almost entirely covered. Basically, only her eyes are showing. So pretty easy to see where she could slip unnoticed. But with that, at least with that many people there, the it was a little jarring at first when like the corpses started animating to talk, but I liked it.
In the voice of Tarouet.
In the voice of Tara. Now, I will say this: I thought the voices, like, I thought they were talking really loud, and I was like, man, like, you're gonna get caught. Like, you gotta like tell this person to shut up a little bit. But no, I mean, it worked for me. I thought it was clever, and I enjoyed seeing again these corpses animate to talk and like act surprised and stuff like that.
It definitely was at first. A little off-putting there, but it brings a little humor to a serious scene. And Tarouet warns her, saying, It's not going to be this easy to basically go up to him and kill him like that. You need Mark, and you're going to have to free Khonshu by breaking his statue, like we've thought. That is why, that is how you free Khonshu. So as kind of our prediction seems to be proven true with that. So Harrow and his followers open up the secret passage at the Pyramid of Giza and wipes out the Aeneid. That is what I call coward's justice.
Yeah. No, I mean, they didn't do anything.
Nope. They're acting all shocked. Why, like, what could have possibly happened? Emmett is alive. Did Harrow lie to us?
Now, the episode didn't explain this unless I missed it twice. Did they have to take Emmett's statue back there to break it and release? Is that because otherwise it's like I'm almost like, why wouldn't they just break it the second they have it?
That's what I was wondering too. It didn't seem.
But if they have to take it back there to break it, why would they keep the statues there? Because that's the one place I don't know. Like, again, overall, I was pretty happy with the episode, but I'm like, it's not a plot hole. People misunderstand what plot hole means, and this is absolutely not a plot hole, but it's just kind of a weird choice.
Keeping all the people at the base.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of, the Flash, and keeping all the...
Not to mention, you said like I don't think they were going back to the Pyramid of Giza, because that's where they started. They started there at the end of episode 4, if you remember, because Steven was all excited. Mm-hmm. But they were going back to wherever, all the cowardly avatars were.
Yes, yeah. And so that gives, as he's taking out all the Aeneid, it gives Layla time to find Khonshu's statue. So Emmett's released, as you said, and is giant compared to the other gods. And she looks pretty accurate to what Lemire designed her as at that point.
Pretty cool looking, I thought. I've been, we saw, I guess, 3 of the gods throughout this series, right? And I was pretty happy with how all of them looked. Layla, and speaking of weird choices, she gets his statue, Khonshu's statue, and she takes it somewhere else to stomp on it. Why do you not just slam it down immediately where you're at? I don't know. But regardless, I did like that effect of Khonshu coming out, of Emmett coming out. Like, that was a cool look, I thought.
Yeah, it was. And which, Emmett says to Harrow says to Harrow that he's imbalanced, and he admits that he hoped his penance and loyalty would have been enough to balance himself, but quote unquote will accept whatever justice Emmett deems. And Emmett says that, well, I think I'm going to keep you around as my avatar. So she's a hypocrite.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of a hypocrite there, but that works to her because when she said to him, like, you're not balanced, he immediately accepted her judgment. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm dead. I get you. I throw myself upon your mercy. If you want me dead, I'm dead. And so it's almost like, wait, he is super loyal to me and I can still use him. So we'll try it. We'll try that.
And he's walked the realm of as Moon Knight at one point. So we'll have to, she can use him for that. So Layla does free Khonshu, breaking it open, and he tries to entice her to be his avatar, and she outright refuses, despite his, calling her a little bug and trying to entice her. And she's like, no, I've seen what you did to Mark. I'm not doing this. We're going to work together, but I will not be your avatar. And so Khonshu and Emmett have a little fight. And Emmett says at one point, Khonshu's time has been cruel to you. So it makes me kind of think that Khonshu didn't always look this kind of disheveled skull-like creature.
Yeah, I could see that. And she was trapped for 2,000 years, I think.
Hmm.
So I mean, even on at the God's timeline, that's quite a bit of time, and so things could have changed for sure.
Hmm. So we do flash back to the fields of reeds, and Mark is there with Terawet with his heart full. He's at peace. However, he himself does not feel right because he left someone behind. Who did he leave behind?
He left quite literally his better half behind, or maybe his better third, I guess would be more accurate.
Yeah.
Steven, of course.
Yep, he left Steven behind, and he says, "I'm going to go back and get him." And Tara warns him, "If you leave, you cannot return." So he does go back out into the duet. The duet. I can't remember how it's
The
how
duet.
it's the duet.
Duet. Duet. Duet.
Duat. There we go. Duat. And finds Steven at the outside the doors of Osiris, and holds his heart in his hand, and he's getting turned into stone. And they put that heart right as in between them, and everyone's labeling as, "Oh, they're homaging Frozen." That's so nice.
Yeah, I did not think of that at the time. Later I saw someone make that comparison.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, yes, it does. It's like that.
Sure, do that. And so Osiris apparently has a heart. The doors open, they get freed, and now the heart disappears and they share one full heart instead of being divided. And they start running into it because there's a huge tidal wave of sand heading towards them. But Terawet comes to the rescue with the big boat, blocks it off, and they go through the door. And they basically Mark starts coming back alive, and Khonshu senses it and comes to them, and he summons the suit and fully resurrects and heals Mark.
I really appreciated that he went back for Steven. Like,
Hmm.
yes, Steven was a manifestation, but he's lived with Steven almost his entire life. He views him as part of him. Like he clearly felt incomplete without Steven, and he, if nothing else, didn't want to, wanted to feel like he was honoring him. And so, I really appreciated that scene. I really liked it. I thought it was touching. It was great to see. Who would have thought that Oscar Isaac's absolute best performance is against Oscar Isaac? But I guess
Yeah.
that's why he was chosen for this role.
Yeah, like I said, I have a little CG issues with this. This is one of mine. That as he's transforming in Moon Knight, the kind of floating head, in my opinion, is back. Kind of reminds me of Bruce Banner in the Hulkbuster from Infinity War. That's at least my opinion. I know you differ on that
I
one.
do. Like, I literally watched that scene just a couple days ago of Infinity War, and then I'm like, nope, I'm not with you on this one. For me though, it's the obviously like 3D printed heart. Like, so just something about that little heart he's holding. I'm like, this is not working. Like, just something about it seems off. That's the little nitpick I had there.
And even the little nitpicks with CG at that point, I think no movie's perfect with CG.
Sure.
But I think that, when we have movies, as we'll get into the news of movies switching releases, CG not being finished, hearing pretty much admissions from the people that why this is done, it's the CG and the backup and visual effects. I'm the proponent right now. If you need extra time, I understand that they may not control the purse strings, and Disney is the one that says, no, you have to release now at that point. Sometimes you can't do it, but if they have the opportunity, I say take the extra time.
I'd be willing to bet that Disney does not tell Kevin Feige like what movie has to release when. They may have a hand in what his release slots are. I'm sure
Mhm.
they do. But if you'll notice, even when like the movies that have swapped recently, it's like they truly just swap places. So like those are
Yeah.
still both Marvel Studios movies. And yes, if they need more time, take more time.
Mhm. So we see Moon Knight walk. We see him walk into the sunlight. We see Moon Knight in the sunlight. So, uh, and he has a conversation with between Mark as Moon Knight and then Steven as Mr. Knight, and they make a new deal with Khonshu where he promises to release them both once Ammit is dealt with. So with the Aeneid gone, he can turn the sky into night without having any issues. So that's kind of fun. And Moon Knight can fly up and has
Was he flying or was he thrown and then glide? I was not clear
I,
on that.
I wasn't clear on it too, but I loved especially the homage to Batman '89 with the Batwing.
It
I did like that.
visually it looked awesome. It did. And yes, the 89 homage there was great. I really liked the effects on that look. I just wasn't clear on I just wasn't clear. Is he actually flying? Or did he get thrown? Like I go back, I rewound it, I watched it a couple times. I'm like, I'm not sure.
And then falling with style.
Well, of course, Buzz, but as Bubs, he was just magically launched up. Yeah, I mean that. I guess that effectively works. He was magically thrown.
Terawit is able to actually flash back, and Terawit's actually able to convince Layla to become her avatar, and a really cool suit.
Yeah, she looked great. I guess they're leaning into that Scarlet Scarab identity of character that people think she's basically a gender swapped version of. Okay, she looked awesome. Hopefully we get to see her some more. Hopefully, sometime in the future we get a shot with her and Captain America, both with their wings, with Sam, of course, and then maybe even Torres if he gets to suit up as the new Falcon.
Yeah, Nathan joining us for a quick hi. Said haven't seen any Moon Knight, but wanted to jump on and say hello.
Well, nice to see you, Nathan. It's a bold choice coming into the season finale review, but you do you.
Hey, Nathan's never been one to care about spoilers. He's very, very much admission to that, but good to have you here, Nathan.
Absolutely.
So, and it was, I thought it was a really cool suit. I thought it was good. I know some people, this is what some people didn't necessarily care for the CG on the wings opening up, but as a whole, I thought it was a cool design for her.
I thought it was awesome. I thought she looked great.
Some people have tried to make some comparisons, like, "Oh, he's stealing from Wonder Woman 84 with some of her actions." Like, all right, come on. Do we have to find coincidence with this?
Is that just because of like using the wings to block the bullets?
Some of that, and then some of the action saving things, and doing.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Wilson was blocking bullets with his wings too. Like it's a pretty obvious move if your wings are not organic.
Yeah. S Bubs agrees, saying that was my favorite part of the episode. Loved the suit. So Moon Knight arrives at the pyramid and battles out with Hera. We've seen that kind of in some of the preview trailers. The fight goes into the streets of Cairo, where they're able to, this was I thought was cool, go back and forth on a whim between Moon Knight, Mr. Knight, Steven exhibiting his highest level of confidence and combat skills we have ever seen. I'll take a hashtag Chris told you so with this one, that as the series went on, his confidence would go. He would take full control of being the Mr. Knight personality and really kind of be a better combatant, especially getting those batons. And I just love the switching back and forth, between both personas.
It started with this amazing shot with Moon Knight landing on the pyramid and running up and just jacking Harrow in the face with the moon right behind him. Just a beautiful shot. I absolutely loved it. And then yes, the switching back and forth, Mr. Knight, finally getting to do his thing. And remember last week, he's like, "Oh, you've got this, Mark. Well, if you've got this, I've got this too." Mm-hmm. Mark's knowledge and experience is rubbing off on Steven. I think we'll see that a little bit going the other way later in the episode. But I really, really enjoyed it. I wasn't entirely clear on why they were switching back and forth, but it was awesome looking. And if the only reasoning was it looks cool, fine, I'm sold. It looked cool.
Well, it also shows again that no one's asking permission from anyone. They're just finding an opportunity to switch in and off at that point. But earlier, as Bub said in the chat, big CGI fight coming. Yes, we've got a freaking kaiju fight going on in Cairo.
Yeah, whatever. It's totally normal. I mean, it's CMCU. We've seen weirder, I feel.
Sure, and we might see weirder come this week,
We might. I saw some people kind of like, why are we, like, who cares about this fight? I'm like, I think it matters. I did care about it. I liked it. If Khonshu had lost that, it wasn't going to matter if Moon Knight beat Harrow. Like, both of them kind of had to win for everything to work. Khonshu didn't entirely win, but he didn't outright lose. He was able to stay in line. I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, Top Gun agrees. Fight scene also looked amazing. each character has his own fighting style. Oh yeah,
Yes.
definitely. The second soul sucker of Phase 4.
I mean, yes, different
Yep.
though, different results, but yes.
Yep. Layla making a lot of hero moves, saving Moon Knight and Mark, protecting bystanders, and with the little girl asking, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" You know what? Some people, I'm sorry. Good for them. Good for them. People say, "Oh, that's a little on the nose." You know what? I'm good with it. It represent. We've said it before. Representation matters. I'm okay with calling that out because you know what? Good for them for doing that.
Was it a little obvious? Was it maybe even a little clunky? Yes. Do I still think it was worth having in there? Yes, absolutely. Representation does matter. We do need to see more kick-ass women doing this stuff, and hey, more Egyptians doing this. Like, yes, absolutely. I'm
Because
fine with it, but I'm the guy that doesn't care about the A-Force scene in Avengers Endgame. In fact, the most offensive thing about that scene to me is that we call it the A-Force scene because I've never liked the name A-Force. But the fact that it's all the women together, I thought was really cool. And it's no different than any other cool superhero pose shot that you get. Towards the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, there's this amazing shot of all three Spider-Men swinging together, and then they all pose for a few seconds like the posers that they are.
Yes.
And every one of us cheered that moment on, right? To me, I don't care. It's like the same thing.
As I said, imagine little Egyptian girl, even a little Egyptian boys at that point, seeing a hero that looks like them,
Yes.
is from their country. That is what is important. Even grown adult men and women seeing that moment that are from Egypt or from Egyptian descent at that point. This is their moment. Bravo. Good job. I don't care if you don't like it. Sorry. I thought it was good. So.
Some things are just in there, kind of like the switching.
Yep.
Because they're cool.
Exactly. So Mark gets stabbed in the chest with a staff, and you see a lot more, again, all that dark dimension magic, and he blacks out, and he comes to, and everyone's taken down, and he's holding an axe to Harrow's head. And
I thought he had killed Harrow at this point. I really did.
It's like, I didn't do it. And Steven said, I didn't do it. And even Layla says, what did you just do?
I mean, she should have seen it, right? I was thinking about this, though. Okay, whatever. We know it's Jake.
It's Jake.
We know it's Jake. Jake seems to be more violent than Mark is. Mark was definitely more violent than Steven. In the first episode, when Steven ends up with in front of Harrow, like he blacks out and he wakes up in front of Harrow and he's surrounded by all his men. He's got the scarab, right? He blacks out. He comes to and everybody's beaten to a bloody pulp. His hand is caked red in blood. Do you actually think that was Jake at that moment and not Mark? Like, Mark has not been, at least not that we've seen, that violent.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some of those ideas, and I kind of been proposing it, that Jake is the one that can slip in and out without them noticing who it is. They're very, if they're not suspecting there's a third personality there that they're not aware of and they can't figure out, then that's just bad.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, and again, like you said, a few extra minutes, maybe an extra episode, maybe delving into that idea, because there's too many times where they've called out, especially the first time they Mark blacks out and Steven's like, what did you do? Is I didn't do this. What was it? Episode two, I think. It's just like, okay, now you've had it again. I know it's not the time to start asking questions, but yeah,
it might have been episode 3, but either way, yes, it happened.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that, that's something that got left on the cutting room floor, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, Top Gun mentions that at the doctor's office, Oscar using the New York accent for a second.
Yep.
And we also saw, in whatever that reality was, we saw the third sarcophagus we saw, which was mentioned in the previously on. Like, the clues were there throughout the show that there was a third personality. Like, this is not something out of the blue. I saw a few complaints of that. Like, this did not come from nowhere, and you don't have to have been a comic book fan to have gotten it, as evidenced by my wife, who's never read a Moon Knight comic, and I didn't tell her anything about it. She picked up that there was a third. She could not have told you the name Jake, but she had already picked up that there's likely a third personality in there. No, it was definitely in there. I do kind of, I guess we're jumping to the end. I kind of wish we had seen Jake earlier in the show.
Yeah. And even in the sequence when he's out looking for Anton, and that's Jake with the accent at that point, slipping in and out of there too. So we've seen these hints, but to your point, I wish we saw a little bit more of them. But so we go back to the Great Pyramid, and they call on the gods to trap Emmett and into Harrow, and so that he becomes permanently bound to Harrow. And Khonshu instructs him to kill him, but Mark refuses, and he says, "I've done what you did." Done what you need to do. Took Emmett off the board, so releases. And Khonshu says, "Fine, I release you." Just be careful what he means by that. Release you.
So I'm going to borrow a term from a tech podcast I listened to called Follow Out, where you're responding to something that was said on another podcast. I was listening to the Geekverse crew talk about this episode. One, you should go listen to their review if you haven't. But Snell was, I'll use the word annoyed with this scene with Mark not going through and killing it after he's killed all these other people. He seemed to be totally no problem. If you believe it was him killing everyone in the first episode during Steven's blackouts, and he had no problem killing there. He had no problem, obviously, killing, or at least he was perfectly willing to do. I get all that concern. I think that the influence that Mark had on Steven, especially with his confidence and fighting, I think some of that influence might have gone the other way also. I think some of Steven's more pacifist, I don't know, inclinations maybe were influencing the other way. Plus, Layla was right there. No, Mark, don't do it. And all the while, he's like, well, if I don't do it, I stick it to Khonshu, right? And Mark is not exactly Khonshu's biggest fan, so he kind of sticks it to him. And it was really, I didn't click with it the first time, but that second time I watched, and it really clicked with me. He says something to Khonshu like, "You're doing the same thing he does." Like, you're accusing him of, you're prejudging him. You're saying you're wanting to punish him for what he's going to do, not what he has done. And that's the difference. I think it makes a lot of sense and shows some growth on Mark's part that he didn't go through with it.
No, it does. And I definitely agree with that, that the impact Steven has had on him and the amount of journey he's gone to not necessarily abandon people just for the mission. Cause I mean, he came back and rescued Steven, and they became much more balanced at that point. Says a lot. But, at, upon being freed, Steven and Mark go back to the asylum at that point. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. And Harrow's there, and the pair basically unite and break free of the trapping of the mind, and basically call out, everything that this quote unquote asylum is basically in Mark's mind, and wake up in Steven's bed, and Mark commenting on, you live in this disaster of a apartment. And you hear the song by Engelbart that was playing in episode 1. The 2 goldfish are in the tank, swimming together, and he tries to get up.
What's the other one's name? It's Gus and who? Gus and Gus 2, I guess.
Gus and Goofus. I don't know.
There you go. All right. I guess we'll go.
And he tries to get up and lands face first on the floor, and that's where we end the episode.
I will admit I laughed. Follow out again. Snell's observation of saying they're ending with falling on their face. Fair point, and somebody maybe should have thought about that before actually doing it. Regardless, it fit because we have seen him fall down like that multiple times, either from the bed or from the wheelchair. And at the end of episode 4, I'll be honest, I laughed at it.
Oh yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. And so we get a post-credit scene, just one, and we see Harrow in an asylum. The psychiatric hospital is named Sienkiewicz. And who is Sienkiewicz?
I don't know. What am I missing?
You don't know?
What am I missing?
Oh, Bill Sienkiewicz. It is named after Bill Sienkiewicz, the artist, one of the big artists from Moon Knight.
Yep. Never mind. I lied.
New Mutants.
My fault. Yes, I'm with you.
So it is London, because based on the end of the scene, we noticed a couple of key things from the skyline. And so this mysterious figure goes up behind his wheelchair, speaks Spanish to the nurse, and tells the nurse that he's going to take him, and don't worry about it. And I know some people I'd heard saying, I think maybe some of the Geekverse crew were thinking maybe it was Blade at that point. Nope, it's Jake, and he's wheeling him through, and you see him in the classic cap, and he's the cab driver, but in this case, he's driving a limo and tosses Harrow into the limo.
Kicks away the wheelchair.
Kicks away the
Like,
wheelchair.
dang.
The license plate on the limo says Spectre, which is a direct pull
That
from
was
the
cool.
comics, with which belongs to Mr. Knight. And Khonshu is in it, wearing a suit very much similar to Mr. Knight.
Looking dapper as hell.
Very much. And Harrow says, "You can't kill me." But Khonshu says, "Well, he's got a new friend. And let me introduce to you," as the front window goes down. "This is Mr. Jake Lockley, who for some reason is speaking in Spanish. I have no explanation to this. No idea why.
No, not a clue.
Nope, sorry, you got me on that. If someone can educate me, please help me on that one." And he executes Harrow in the limo, and they drive off.
Shoots him several times. They show a couple, and
Yep.
then there's a few more flashes as they shoot to an overhead view. Now, I feel like it's really important that we go back to that scene when Khonshu made the deal with Mark and Steven. He says, quote, "I will release you both. You have my word."
Yep. He
He
kept his
never
word.
said anything about Jake because nobody knew about Jake other than Khonshu. Or at least not Mark and Steven. Like, to me, and Khonshu, he's a dirty little bastard, right? Like, this makes so much sense. And so I like it. It's cool we got Jake. I'm excited to see in the future, which we'll talk about in a second, what happens with Jake. But I will say this. I'm glad they did it here. I would have rather had it earlier in the episode or in the whole season to begin with, the whole series. But I'm glad they did it here instead of not doing it at all. I feel like if, let's say they do end up doing a season 2 and then they brought out Jake then, it would have felt too much like a retread, I think, of the first season by suddenly having like Steven have to figure out what's happening when he is experiencing blackouts.
Again, especially if when Khonshu's on mission, like, oh, Mark's much more damaged than he realizes at this point.
Yeah.
And this is the whole point of Jake, at least how they've done it. Jake takes over without any of them knowing. They just see the aftermath of what Jake has done, to the point of episode 1. Mark didn't ask out the tour guide. That was Jake.
I think so too. I agree.
And I propose that theory. We don't get answers on that. We're just supposed to kind of, based on how we see the episode, this is the only explanation that can be there.
I will say this. We know we've talked about the contract that Oscar Isaac allegedly only has for this one limited event, limited series, right? If they don't go back to Moon Knight, if they don't come up with a deal for Oscar and it doesn't happen again, right? Like, then this post-credit scene, I feel, is just out of place and weird and makes no sense if they don't do that, right?
Yeah.
But as you've talked about with me earlier, it's like, when is the last time a major hero was introduced and they didn't go back to them?
Yeah.
Right? There isn't one. An asterisk for Edward Norton's Hulk, because they recast.
That's an actor, not a character.
But that's the actor, not the character. The character stuck around. I can't think of any other major character who was only in one property and didn't come back.
And this is what I was talking to you about this morning, and I'll bring it up here, is that, Oscar Isaac has not been hiding his feelings on how his time on Star Wars was.
Right.
It wasn't a great time for him. He enjoyed lots of different parts, but it wasn't the best experience. So when you get presented with an opportunity, and he's even commented on, like, even though the one movie, X-Men Apocalypse, he said, I can't remember what he said. It was a very good quote. He said, I don't like run away from that movie. It just, I wish it would have been better.
Well, we all?
Yes, we do. But, you get presented with another opportunity, another franchise level opportunity with being a part of the MCU. He's a very in-demand actor. If you didn't know this, go to Kickstarter. He's joining up and doing his own graphic novel with a team of writers and artists. And so check that out. But he's got a lot to do, very much wanting to do his passion projects on top of doing, the blockbusters. Having him officially tied down for 3, 4, 5 projects from there, that's a lot to ask from him. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's a little gun shy for that. However, I do believe we will see Moon Knight again, and maybe he just structures his deal in the sense of, when the script is right, because he says on record he had a lot of creative input on this show. When the time is right for him, when the script is right, when the project comes at the right time, he will join back up. Mark my words. It may not be, but remember, Moon Knight is not what Phase 4, not as what they're going to hold the what the next thing is for Moon Knight's going to be. Do we want to see Moon Knight soon? Yes, but it's not something that is contingent on as a linchpin for the rest of this phase 4 going into phase 5.
One thing that his next appearance will have to deal with is that presumably Mark and Steven do not recognize that they still have access to the Moon Knight powers in the Khonshu. I'm already wondering, is Jake going to suit up? Is this Moon Knight costume going to look different? I think we mentioned at one time perhaps he'll go with the more modern look where he's got more black and mixed in with the white. Sure, I hope they do. I'd love to see that. I do think though, like, that's kind of a tough creative challenge to figure out. Like, we've speculated that maybe he'll pop up in Werewolf by Midnight, right? Werewolf by Night.
Yeah.
Let's say that's true. Let's say he does. Unless it's set prior to the events of this show, it's kind of weird. It kind of doesn't make sense unless they make it clear that it's Jake we're following along with. Which
and remember, that show itself, or that special, already is having introduced a couple of characters, with other rumors saying that Blade will be making another appearance in there. That's a lot for what we're deeming as, we don't know how long that special is going to be. You put out the idea today that you're thinking maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I don't know if where that's coming from, if that's a rumor that I heard or I'm remembering. For some reason, I don't feel like it's going to be that long. I'm not expecting anything north of an hour, for example.
No.
I would love to see Marvel do even a shorter film, like a 90-minute movie or something. I'd love to see something like that. But I have in my head it's going to be quite a bit shorter than that. So it's just going to be kind of weird, because the character we're attached to is Mark, is Steven. It's not Jake. And to Oscar Isaac's credit, they are different characters. So it's just an interesting creative challenge.
Yeah. Looking at the future of it, we've still got Midnight Suns on the table. We don't have closure on the Bushman story, in my opinion. We know what happened.
They could definitely go back to that.
We can go back to that. Mark and Steven becoming aware of Jake, we've already talked about. I thought as a whole, the casting was really top-notch with Layla, Mark, and Arthur. Arthur is definitely not one of my top-tier villains for this. He started off really interesting, but as it went through, I wouldn't call him mustache twirly, but it became pretty standard. It wasn't anything different.
He's certainly not going to top my list of my favorite MCU villains. I don't subscribe to the MCU villain problem, but if I was talking to someone about that and I'm like, okay, well, these are the villains that I think are great, right? These are the villains I'm like, fine. If you want to say they're villain problem, whatever. Arthur, for me, is not in that bottom tier. Like, he would not be in the villain problem category. He's not like, Thanos caliber. He's not like amazing like that, but he's not Malekith, right? He's not, let's just hit the extremes. He's not Malekith.
Yeah, I mean, again, they took a character that was in one or two comics and turned him into this villain amalgamation of different ideas. So, I mean, bravo for that. I think Ethan Hawke did a very good job with the
absolutely
part. I mean, for pretty much, I think it was great casting on all parts. Like I said before, I'm definitely going to rewatch again. I think now that it's done, I think as we just started Ozark, so I think we'll circle back around to Moon Knight. Be Aaron's first time watching it series through, so that's probably the next time I watch it.
I think those last two episodes, the director had talked about 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6 being little individual movies. I think those last two will work really well together. Like, if you were able to watch them back to back in one sitting, if you could cut out the credits and just roll into it, right? Like almost like a mini movie, like I was just talking about. I think those two together would work really well together. Overall, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it was a good show. I mean, I kind of made my rankings. I won't put you on the spot if you don't have your kind of rankings ready at that point. But
I have one, always subject to change.
Yes, the same with mine. But right now, where it stands right now, and this is just for Disney Plus, I've already put it into my Letterboxd -1 because Letterboxd doesn't like What If. This is where they stand right now. Loki is my number 1, WandaVision number 2, Falcon Winter Soldier 3, What If 4, Moon Knight 5, and Hawkeye 6. Just because Moon Knight and Hawkeye are towards the bottom does not mean I do not like them. I think I've been very clear on our reviews. It's just, if I were to say what is one of my top things, what I think is awesome, outstanding, Loki takes the top. Hawkeye, Moon Knight are right now at the bottom, but I there's a lot to like about both those shows, and I really do enjoy them, and I definitely will be revisiting them.
All right. Well, I do have a ranking for overall within the MCU, but if we were going to just stick with the Disney Plus shows, before I say this, I love WandaVision. I want to make that very clear. I love WandaVision.
Read between the lines, folks. Get ready.
WandaVision episode 8, I think, is the single best episode of the entire MCU's television content to date, just to be clear. But I would go now, having
Snoop.
Well, Snooper's going to Snoop. Right now, I would go Loki, Hawkeye, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Moon Knight, WandaVision, What If. In that order. That would be my order. And again, I love WandaVision. I know people, including my wife, if she were to hear this, but she won't, would be just yelling at me right now because that's like her favorite MCU thing. It is wonderful. It is absolutely wonderful. I just think, for me, with WandaVision, the greatness of it is more in the back half because the early weirdness is just not quite as good when you've seen the series 5 times, 6 times. And that's the number I'm looking at. Okay. I watched it 4 times when it first came out and that we just watched it again. But again, episode 8, I still think is like some of the finest storytelling they have totally done. And I am still, for me, I'm surprised Falcon and Winter Soldier is not higher because going into this is those are the characters I was the most excited for. Mm-hmm. I really, really had a ball with Hawkeye, and Loki is just so good.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm one of the few that put Falcon and Winter Soldier in the top 3. I know a lot of people, including yourself, that put it towards the bottom at that point, saying, oh, it's just standard MCU stuff. I said, there's a lot of connections I have with that show, either as a lover of the story, the characters. There's something really has rung through to me that I really enjoy a lot about the show. But again, that's my opinion, subject to change, just like you.
The Captain America group of movies are still my favorite group of movies within the MCU. And projects, I should say. One thing I really appreciate about Moon Knight is I feel very rewarded by long-standing things that reference other things, subtle things in the MCU. Things like the Wasp calling Captain America Cap in Avengers Endgame, or Black Panther calling Clint in Avengers Endgame. Those kind of little subtle, as a longtime fan, I'm very rewarded by those. But I've got to give them credit. With Phase 4, they definitely are doing more projects where the connections are much smaller, so they're much more new viewer friendly, right? Moon Knight, the ancestral plane, the reference to the GRC, that was pretty much it. And you don't have to know what any of that. You could go into this 100% cold, see nothing else with the Marvel logo on it ever, and be totally satisfied with the story they told. And I think that's a good thing. And when you're 30 plus projects into it, you got to have some of those. Yes, I love the connections that Spider-Man No Way Home or that Black Widow gave, but you got to have this stuff too.
They didn't even reference the snap in Moon Knight. We had the GRC being kind of in the background, but no snap reference, nothing.
And it's not, Eternals technically did reference Thanos, but if you didn't know what it was, it doesn't change anything. Right, so Eternals, I would put in that category. Even Shang-Chi, yes, Wong is in it, and the credit scene is, but the main movie, you don't need anything. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing that they're doing that. Because prior to that, I was going back and trying to look at it. Prior to that, I think Doctor Strange was the last time you could go into a Marvel movie with no prior knowledge. And that's just, it's good. You got to keep growing the fan base. I think this is a good way to do it. Ms. Marvel's coming in next. It's not quite the same. Yes, they're introducing a new character, but you just know there's going to be prior knowledge there because of Captain Marvel.
Yep. So again, I'd say all in all, definitely enjoyed Moon Knight. Look forward to revisiting it at that point. And so we are going to be taking a break. And S-Bubs kind of threw his rankings out there. His are Loki, Moon Knight, Hawkeye, WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier. Where would you put
What If?
You missed What If?
Well, now I feel like we've been left hanging, but it's a good list regardless.
It is. All right. So we're going to take our next ad break before we get into our 2 news items to go over tonight. So as you know, listeners, these ads keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on. We can be a bit loud. They can be a bit loud. Give you that 3 count to turn that volume down. 3, 2, one. We'll be right back. All right. So, both of these news items happened on Friday. So I love setting a show already that early when things come up. But it definitely was very surprising. I don't think either one of us would have predicted this necessarily. But Friday, Deadline broke the story that John Watts, the director of the Spider-Man Home trilogy at that point, and named director way back when we had our first kind of Disney kind of plus day at that point a couple years ago, was the name director of Fantastic Four. Well, he has exited being and has left the project. And Watts just, he, nothing sinister here. Everyone kind of made outright statements about it, from Kevin Feige to John Watts himself. He just needs a break from the superhero realm after completing the Spider-Man trilogy. And, with Fantastic Four, that's a lot, a lot was right. A lot is still riding on that movie, getting the MCU proper treatment to the Marvel's first family. And I can't blame him for wanting to take a break. And, after all the promotion and all the buildup and it's a huge success of No Way Home, he said, making 3 Spider-Man films was an incredible life-changing experience. I'm eternally grateful to have been a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe for 7 years. I'm hopeful we'll work together again soon. And I can't wait to see the amazing vision for Fantastic Four and what they bring to it. Watts, according to this article, is still expected to return for Spider-Man 4. So that's kind of news. I don't know where Deadline is getting that, but that's kind of the biggest confirmation we've had.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this, and not only did he just do a Spider-Man trilogy, but he also had to incorporate elements of the Amazing Spider-Man movies and the original Raimi movies. Like, it wasn't just closing out the Tom Holland first trilogy, hopefully first trilogy. He was also kind of circling back on these other 5 movies as well. And that's a big task to do. And he clearly was up to it. I was looking forward to seeing his take on the Fantastic Four. I love the 3 Spider-Man movies. I'm like, yes, I'm sold. I'm in. Let's do this, right? That said, I also love that this is when it's happening. This early. It's not, a couple months before production like it was with the first Ant-Man movie and Edgar Wright. It's not, halfway through actual production or 70% through production or whatever it was for the Solo movie. I don't remember the specifics with a Solo a Star Wars story. It's the right time to do it, and I guess time will tell. Like, if we see him doing a Spider-Man film again that's set in the MCU, like, we'll know for sure, like, he really did just want a break. And maybe part of that is, if you really think about it, if he knew he wanted to come back to do Spider-Man, maybe that means maybe he couldn't do both. Like, both wasn't going to be an option. And maybe he's choosing to stick with Spider-Man. Maybe he didn't want to have to start a new franchise with the possibility of bouncing between Spider-Man and Fantastic Four for multiple films apiece. I get it. It's fair. And, he used to be kind of an indie director. He probably wants to look at some smaller projects as well. All I can do is, thank you for your service to the Spider-Man movies as is. If you never touch the MCU again, you've still made an absolute legendary movie.
Yep, as Pub says, the Fantastic Four curse.
I don't know what he's talking about. I've never heard that.
He does have another strong project that might become his next outing at that point, to your point, doing a couple of passion projects. Last September, Apple Studios won a brisk auction for an Untitled Watts film that he will write and direct, with George Clooney and Brad Pitt playing rival fixers who find themselves simultaneously hired for the same job. The film deal calls for Apple to give the film a robust theatrical release before it hits Apple TV+. Watts is producing that film with Clooney Smokehouse Pictures and Pitt's Plan B Entertainment. So he does have something already in the works. So again, maybe, like you said, just wants a break. The question is, at this point, who do you go with? Who is next? And I do agree with a lot of people. What they're saying is, they're probably going to go with someone, not necessarily an unknown, but probably someone they've worked with before.
You think it'll be someone they've worked with? So like a past director, or like someone else who was on the projects?
I'd say someone else. If it's not, it's going to be someone they've worked with. I'm just saying in general, someone they have a good working relationship. If they're going to go with director, I don't. This is just a shot in the dark, just because of who is involved with it. I mean, Peyton Reed could maybe jump over.
That was the first name that I thought. He same situation.
We might have lost Brent. So Brent was saying before that there were some storms going on at that point, so he may have lost power at that point. So I'll kind of carry it for a little bit. Hopefully he can jump back in. Okay, he just texted me his computer just rebooted, so he'll be back in a little bit. Sam Raimi, Peyton Reed, or someone new. And yeah, so Sam Raimi, it's going to be interesting. I don't see Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness not being a success, so that's good. I don't know for someone new. I think, as I said before, with Fantastic Four, the MCU's first outing with trying to get Marvel's first family right for this is going to be a lot riding on it, and especially if they still haven't had a date on it. There's been obviously, we now know the reason why we haven't had any castings, we haven't had any plot details or anything like that. I mean, this is where this is going. So the fact that this was announced Friday with all these ideas, I think that this wasn't just a sudden, oh, John Watts is leaving at that point. This has probably been something that maybe in the last month or so, John Watts let Marvel Studios know that he's probably wanted to step away. So Brent's back.
I'm back. That was really weird. My whole screen just went green. The computer rebooted itself, and I'm back. I have no idea what happened. I'll have to investigate that later. What I was going to say before it cut off is with Peyton Reed, and maybe, I don't know if you touched on this while I was rebooting. With Peyton Reed, you do potentially have the similar issue that you had with Watts and Spider-Man movies, and that he's wrapping up a third Ant-Man movie. This appears to be the biggest one so far. That said, there's one other thing about Peyton Reed that to our knowledge, Watts never publicly did. Peyton Reed has publicly gone after this job before. Like, he's talked about wanting to direct the Fantastic Four before. So, if they wanted to give the job to him, okay. I would be okay with that.
The fact that like I said, I was saying off there, like, there's been no castings, so this kind of leads to why, probably at this point. I don't know how close they are with their backup list and where they're going in their conversations at that point. When we'll hear a replacement, I would say it's probably going to come, I would say maybe in the fall, we'll hear a replacement.
Yeah, that feels fair. Maybe like a San Diego Comic-Con time as the absolute earliest, but
we don't have that anymore.
Well, that's true. But maybe... they did the virtual things, but
I was just thinking, I was saying more if it's late summer,
like a Disney Plus day type thing again. I could see, yeah.
True. The only reason I say maybe late summer, early fall is just because you've given Multiverse of Madness their timeline. You got Thor: Love and Thunder. You've gone through. We have no drop date for What If, but it's something that could kind of fit in as kind of a story, saying, okay, here's our name director. This is when we're going to be looking at the project getting started. So.
Ooh, I like what Espos just wrote. Do you see that?
Oh, let's see. Yeah, I've heard this one. I agree with people saying Bryce Dallas Howard would be a good choice. She's in the Disney family already. The episodes have been all well received. A lot of people just want her first. That's fine with me. I'm good with her if she wants to stick with Star Wars. But yeah, not a bad idea. Get her on it.
I'm a little torn just because I would love to see her get a Star Wars project totally her own. Because yes, her episodes have been amazing. And so I'm like, I kind of want to see you over there. But let's be honest, Marvel's where my heart's at. So come on over.
come on over to the other side.
We'll take you.
We'll take it. Well, let us jump to our final news story of switching release dates. This also came out on Friday. It was a 1-2 punch with Marvel on Friday. Marvel Studios announced that the Marvels and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania are swapping release dates in 2023. The Marvel, which is the sequel to Captain Marvel, was originally due to open February 17th, 2023, and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, it was set to open July 28th, 2023. Instead, Quantumania will now be the first of 2023 movies in February, with the Marvels following up in July. So, insiders said that the matter was basically Quantumania is simply further along in the creative process, and Marvel still has some principal photography, has wrapped principal photography, but still has a bit has just kind of a little bit more to go, and especially with some CG at that point. The other theatrical release of 2023, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, is still set to release May 5th, 2023. So we had been saying for a while that, and some rumors were saying that with the issues going on with Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, that the Marvels would be switching with Black Panther. So with this announcement of two projects, the two first projects in 2023 switching places, we talked about it last week with CinemaCon stuff. This brings me a lot more confidence that Black Panther Wakanda Forever will keep its release date for this year. What do you think?
Completely agree. I would not have been surprised if it had been Black Panther and the Marvels that had swapped. Hearing that it was the Marvels and Quantumania, okay, so one, thank you for recognizing that you're just not going to make the deadline with the Marvels. It was going to be kind of cool to have Ms. Marvel in the summer, and then not have to wait that long to get to see Captain Marvel with Ms. Marvel and Monica, whatever her name's going to be again. Like that was going to be cool, but at the same time, it's fine, no big deal. I'm just appreciate that they're doing that, and this gives me way more confidence. Wakanda Forever. I'm still feeling good about its release date, this fall.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that. But that's where our news is, and that's okay for us this week. We have a movie coming out that we need to focus on, right?
That's right.
All right. So, let us move into feedback. I think you put out the call, and did we get any questions?
We had one that came in, unless I missed it, but I did request people hold off on the Doctor Strange.
Yes,
anything Doctor Strange related. So this one that came in was from Tim Rooney. He sends me this text earlier, and he says, this is for the show. Has Marvel become so prevalent and so ubiquitous that it's lost that special quality, that any new content is less of an event and a good portion of people watch whatever is released out of obligation to be up on the pop culture rather than genuine interest?
I see where he's going with this. I think a while back, either last year, when we kind of started, when the shuffling of the schedule happened, going back to John Watts. I mean, remember, this man had an idea for a movie at that point, and things started changing, and script changes had to be with now it coming out before Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So another problem he had to face, and probably took a lot out of him. When you have, we had Eternals, we had Spider-Man No Way Home, now we're in Multiverse of Madness. Those are three movies that had kind of big, quote unquote, I'll put end game level stuff in quotes, just because of the end of the world kind of nature, or different like major things kind of going at that point. And you kind of get event fatigue in some ways at that point. It's like everything is the end of the world at that point. The multiverse is collapsing, things like that. And so when we finally come to Thor: Love and Thunder, that's going to be kind of a breath of fresh air, in my opinion, in the sense of, oh, the world's not going to be collapsing necessarily. I know we have War of the God Butcher going out there, but it's not like, I just don't feel the threat of endgame level with it necessarily. To his point of being just in the know rather than genuine interest, I don't know. I think, that kind of teeters on the idea of, MCU is over, of, not as much interest. Well, I mean, the people keep on coming to these things over and over again. I don't know if it's necessarily, I think there is some part of it that you want to be in the know, but I think a lot of people just really enjoy the movies, and just want to enjoy seeing what's next.
Okay, so I've been thinking about this since he sent this.
You got to him, Tim. You got to him.
He did. Do I think that this new content is less of an event and people are watching just to stay up to date on the pop culture? Anecdotally, yes, I'm sure you could find somebody who would fit into that category. But as a group, as a collective, I don't think so. I think people just choose the projects they want to choose. Yes, there's people like myself, like you, who are going to watch all of it and stay current on all of it. There are some people who probably will stay current on all of it because they feel like they need to stay current on everything, even if it really doesn't matter. Like, I'm sure somebody watched Moon Knight only because it's Marvel Studios and they wanted to be current on everything for Doctor Strange, right? Even though they maybe weren't interested in Moon Knight. And now they know, well, it's, if they didn't already, that it wasn't going to matter. But I think a lot of it, like, I think the box office shows people still go to the movies they want to go to, right? A lot more people wanted to see Spider-Man No Way Home, so that movie did $1.8 billion plus. A lot fewer people wanted to go see Shang-Chi, Eternals, whatever the Black Widow, whatever the movie is, right? This where I think people just go where the interest is. I don't think, again, outside of anecdotally, that they are going to see just because they feel like the social pressure to, right? Like there's at this, I mean, if someone's doing that, they're off their rocker because there are so many amazing TV series and streaming series and movies that are coming out across all the different streamers and theatrically at the studios and even still on regular, more traditional television. You don't have time to watch something that you're not interested in.
Oh God, right? You should see my Netflix queue. Ooh, it's rough.
Right. I have a list going of like shows that I would like to get to, like a genuine list. Like these are things I would like to check out. And it's just getting longer. And I just, no, in general, I don't think that's the case. I mean, right now, I look at what social media is like across Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Like, I don't believe that people are not looking at Doctor Strange as an event. I look at what it was like for Loki and WandaVision, and especially WandaVision. I mean, that bordered on phenomenon, if you ask me at the time. And it's
the first MCU project we had in over a year.
Yeah, 563 days. But and Agatha all along, that song charted on the Billboard charts for like a day.
Who would have predicted that?
I do think these are still massive events, but I think it's more appropriate. The Moon Knight stuff, I haven't seen as much for Moon Knight as I saw for Loki.
Yeah.
Right? It's also a brand new character versus a beloved character that had been around for around 10 years, 9 years, something like that. It's just not, I don't think of, like, if Spider-Man No Way Home had come out and did half as much money, all right, maybe we'd start talking, right? And the half as much money would have been $900 million. And I'm saying that might have been underselling it a little bit.
Well,
but
it's one of these things that, starting off with No Way Home, and we're entering a series of 5 to 6 upcoming projects with No Way Home included in that since No Way Home, that are all sequels.
Yep. We're getting lots of sequels, but at the same time, we're getting new projects on the Disney Plus side.
Correct, yes.
And so we are getting both. We're getting Spider-Man, which goes back farther than any of it, right? Like that literally goes back to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We're getting that, and then we're getting Moon Knight, which goes back nowhere. You don't need a single thing before it. And we're getting stuff in between. Yeah, sure. She-Hulk is going to have obvious ties to Hulk. Ms. Marvel, obvious ties to Captain Marvel. Shows like that. But we're getting Echo, like that's about to go into production. That kind of just ties back to Hawkeye, as far as we know. We'll find out. Hopefully there's maybe some Daredevil tie-in as well. But it's like they're definitely playing with new characters, introducing new characters there. Working with how much you have to go back. Doctor Strange, I think, is different. I think Spider-Man was even different, but for Black Widow, I don't feel like you had to go all the way back to the beginning of the MCU to understand.
Well, to be a true fan, if we're going to gatekeep now.
Well, sure, but and Shang-Chi and Eternals, absolutely not, right? It's just, I don't think we're there, but I do think we're in a world where not every movie is an Avengers level event, but that's not realistic. And newsflash, not to Rooney because he's not saying this, but other people do. Not every movie was an Avengers level event before the event, like before either. It was certain ones. Thor Ragnarok was not an Avengers level event. I mean, it did $800 million. Don't get me wrong. It was, and it's a phenomenal movie in my opinion, but it wasn't an event the same way.
I'll never look at Happy Birthday and Get Help ever again the
Absolutely.
same way.
Guardians of the Galaxy, like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was not, again, it was big, it was successful. It wasn't an event the way that Infinity War and Endgame were. But those did so much that a lot of people think, and again, I'm not saying this you specifically, Rooney, but I've seen this out there. A lot of people feel like it has to match those levels. Frankly,
I don't think it does.
no, that's too much. That's too much.
Well,
Yes, event fatigue would absolutely come into play.
And that's the thing. That's where I was just kind of interested of like, I'm not saying I know the divisiveness of Eternals, but I kind of said as like Eternals put out like a world-ending event. No Way Home presented a multiverse kind of ending event. Doctor Strange is presenting a really big questioning of the multiverse moving forward. So it's just like, it's that does lead to, in my opinion, that if they're the event fatigue. That's why I'm looking forward to Thor: Love and Thunder, of just kind of a different type of film that kind of leads me back. Okay, I'm ready for a road trip. You know,
I would push back on the Eternals inclusion there. Spider-Man: No Way Home. As far as we know, Multiverse of Madness, we haven't seen it yet, so we can judge that later. Sure, those I think are like massive events. Mm-hmm. Eternals in the story, sure, world-ending event, whatever.
That's more of what I'm referring to.
But I don't think that's like the event fatigue that like Tim was kind of bringing up and referring to. Fair. I think he's more thinking like, because Eternals was nowhere near a pop culture phenomenon, sure, right? Like nowhere near it. Let's be clear. Like it just wasn't. And I'm sorry if Eternals is your favorite movie, but it just didn't hit the way all the other ones did. I think Shang-Chi was a bigger deal than Eternals was. And you could maybe make in story, the world could have been at stake with, the World Eater, or not the World Eater, I'm already forgetting what it's called, the Soul Sucker thing, Soul Sucker Dragon. But I don't think massive events. Now, I will say this. I would have predicted more time between Endgame and a Spider-Man No Way Home, or a seemingly Multiverse of Madness. I would have predicted more time. Of course, there's that extra year and a half in there due to COVID that was never planned. But if you just look at like the next projects, I would have thought it would have been longer before getting these massive events again.
Yeah. So, but yeah, good question to think on, Tim.
Yes, great question.
All right, so before we get your fact or fictions, let's revisit the ones from last week. So, number 1, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness will make $1 billion at the box office by the end of its theatrical run. 80% said fact, 20% said fiction. You put in the right hashtag, you get a lot of votes. It's had over 55 votes. Number 2, Chris Hemsworth will appear in at least 3 more MCU projects after Thor: Love and Thunder. 56% said fact, 44% said fiction. Number 3, Moon Knight will have at least 3 seasons. Hines is shooting for stars on that one.
Yeah, no joke.
8% said fact, 92% said fiction. They're not.
We're all just begging for that second one. And he's like, we're going to 3.
I'm swinging, pointing out there and taking my shot. He's gonna be laughing.
I like his confidence.
Yep, I do. And the last one, this was your +1 for the end. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness will become 2022's highest box office performer to date for both the domestic opening weekend and worldwide box office run, beating the current champion, The Batman. 84% said fact, 16% said fiction, 57 people voted on that one.
Nice.
Yeah. So, all right. So you're up. What do you got?
All right, well, I've got my whole big list here of ones I'm looking at. I'm going to start off with one that I didn't come up with till after the dates changes. Loki season 2 will be after Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Fact.
I will now say fact, looking at when Ant-Man is coming out. I thought it would be the other way around prior to the switch. I did. So yeah. I'm curious what that may do, because it seems like we know Quantumania deals with Kang. He Who Remains is a version of Kang. I just felt like, I don't know. I'd love to be on the wall as they're like fly on that wall as they're figuring that timeline out.
Have they said when they're starting filming on that?
Not that I've seen.
Okay.
Started to see a little bit more chatter about it. I know like the head writer just got changed or something, but I don't know when it's going to start.
Okay. Yep. All right. So what you got at number 2?
All right. Number 2, Gore the God Butcher will kill an Egyptian god in Thor: Love and Thunder.
Fiction. I think we're going to stay out in the cosmics.
When I first wrote this down It was weeks ago. Like I've just been sitting on it. Like it's I've had Fact or Fiction
Yeah.
since I had this in my list, and I finally was like, no, I'm gonna go ahead and put it in there. And I ultimately am gonna come to that same conclusion. I'm going fiction. Yes, I think at least part of it's going to be on Earth, but I feel like Ragnarok, like Thor: The Dark World, most of this movie will be out in the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get number 3. We'll go totally different, just totally, completely unrelated to all that.
We get nuts.
No, we're not Batman. Deadpool and Deadpool 2 will be on Disney Plus prior to Deadpool 3 release.
I'll go fact. I'll get a little nutty on that one. Yeah, I'll go fact.
They didn't put those mature content systems in there for no reason. You know, I think it's a fact.
They already tried it. So in the sense of getting a little quote unquote mature, you know.
To be clear, I guess I should have said like domestically, because I'm not sure Deadpool might be on Disney Plus like overseas.
Yeah, that's
like
what
it
I
might
was
already
saying.
be there.
Yeah, maybe on
Yeah,
the stars
so
part.
yes, I do. Well, I'll modify it to say Disney Plus in the US prior to Deadpool 3 release.
Gotcha. Yep. So I'll definitely be fact on that one. So all right, I will post those on Sunday, and you guys let your voices be heard. So all right, well we've got officially the start of our new comic book club with Annihilation #1. So this weekend I felt a little ambitious, and technically this kind of falls this event, these 6 issues came after basically a whole bunch of preludes to it, from a Drax the Destroyer miniseries, Nova miniseries, Super Skrull miniseries, Ronin miniseries, Silver Surfer miniseries, and a one-shot Annihilation prologue. So all of that happened before this issue 1 hit the stands. And I just said, you know what, let me revisit it. Let me see exactly so I kind of get a gamut of where they are. And you know, if I were, you know, because I was a little worried when getting back into going to issue 1, I said, okay, are they going to do this is someone's first issue? Are they going to, how well are they going to refer back to those issues? And I think for the most part, they did a good job of making sure that you really didn't have to read, not even the prologue. I think they do a very good setup for that.
Yeah, I would agree. I was not nearly as ambitious, and I read this issue. I have read the others all before, though. I've read them more than once. It has been a very long time since I've read any of them outside Nova. The last time I went through like the Nova series, I did read the mini series prologue, Annihilation, and then I read the Nova series. It has been a long time, but it was still like it's coming back to me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like here's what Ronan's doing. Like, okay, great, I'm caught up to speed, and oh yeah, Drax, and I'd actually forgotten about Kimi, the little girl that follows him around. Like, okay, yeah, we're all caught up to speed. One thing that without fail, every time I go back to this, every time I've ever revisited this, that I forget about, Peter Quill is totally different than he is in like even in Guardians of the Galaxy a little bit after this. Like he's just like by the same like writers, like he's just very, very different. And I always forget about it.
With a bionic eye.
Yes. It's like, you know, there's one reference to Nova getting his leg blown off, and it's just in a caption, they were able to regrow it though, so no big deal. And I'm like, they can't regrow Peter's eye? I mean, come on now.
I mean, even you get like Gamora. Gamora becomes a big part of the Ronin arc at that point, but like her looks and everything, you know, kind of like at that point, it's just like, yeah, if you're either used to the MCU portrayal or later how the Guardians are in comics at that point, not realizing this is kind of where they get their reintroduction to the cosmic side of Marvel. I mean, it's kind of a very different portrayal.
It's kind of like how like the first appearance of like Groot, like he talked, right?
Yeah.
Like there was none of this I am Groot thing. Like he full on like would have a conversation with you.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a major event in the sense of like, this is the beginning of what we who've been fans for this is the beginning of the first part of the modern cosmic trilogy. You know, the first one we always refer back to is the Infinity Saga. But you know, we have Annihilus and his Annihilation Wave. Annihilus is the quote unquote ruler of the negative zone. And he has felt that the main universe is creeping in on the negative zone. So he launches an attack in order to reclaim the universe that he considers his, and basically wiped out pretty much most of the Skrull, you know, just population and worlds, taken out Vander. The Nova Corps are gone. Richard Rider's the last of the Novas. The Kree are on the ropes at that point, and it's looking pretty dire. I mean, for crying out loud, like the Heralds of Galactus, former Heralds of Galactus, are involved in this, trying to keep the Annihilation Bay. I'm like, when you open this issue, like I said, if you read the previous stuff, you kind of see how dire why it got to this point. It's not looking like anyone's going to win this outside of Annihilus.
Yeah, without those other stories, you're definitely coming into this story like in the middle of it somewhere. Like I know it's issue 1, but like they're in the middle of this war, they're in the thick of it. And I like all the little countdowns, Annihilation Day plus 200 or whatever it is, giving you a sense of scale of how long this really took. And it's kind of funny cuz like all of this stuff happened and like the Earth heroes knew nothing about it. And I remember like Richard going back to Earth and like that being a source of some conflict with Iron Man, I want to say, where like he had been through all this stuff. And like Richard Rider used to be like a teen hero on the New Warriors, right?
Yep.
And he was very much street level. In my Spider-Man story, Round Robin Sidekicks Revenge, I love bringing up every chance I get. He's one of the people in that, but he's very much just that younger hero and stuff. And here, like he, through this and through his miniseries, like he matures so much. And it really was like this version of the character from that Annihilation miniseries through his solo series that he had after that, which went for 20, 30 odd issues, where I really grew to love the Nova concept in general and specifically this version of Nova.
Yeah, because I mean, Drax became part of the Drax miniseries, led into Nova, and so when he refers to Drax made me kind of more harder warrior at that point, and he is also the embodiment of you know the Nova kind of world mind at that point, and he's basically has the all like Nova power all in him, which previous people have had it go insane. And so he's in a battle to how much does he exude himself before losing control. But yeah, I love it that the Heralds of Galactus, the former Heralds, are out there fighting at this point. They're able to capture one of the quote unquote queens, Extipia, I believe, and kind of see.
Never been able to pronounce that name.
Nope, I'm just gonna go with yes on that one. We see
Yep.
that Thanos is on Annihilus' side at that point, working his own angles at that point. Nova hooking up with Gamora, that's a thing.
Yeah, in the movies it's Peter Quill, but no, in the
Yeah.
comics it was, at least at this point, it was Richard Rider.
But the idea of how dire this is, like when the Annihilation Wave began, there was this prison on the edge of the galaxy and the negative zone that were holding the worst of the worst. Well, unbeknownst at that point, that they were also holding dormant gods that Galactus had put there, and they woke up, and so they want revenge on Galactus, and his former, now renewed Herald, Silver Surfer, is fighting them, and it ain't going well for both Silver Surfer and Galactus.
No, it's not. In fact, I love just at the end of it, who basically is like, they're claiming they took down Galactus. If you believe them, if you don't think they're just bragging and stuff. And just at the end of it, Nova, like his monologue, for the record, I believed every word. They took down Galactus. God help us all. I'm like, that's a heck of a way to end the first issue with Galactus going down. Because what's an army with Drax and Peter and Nova going to do against something that could take down Galactus?
Exactly. Those two godlike beings at that point are basically playing into Thanos' hand. We don't know what Thanos' endgame is at this point, but he's trying to take cosmic energy for his own devices. He's just not sharing that full idea with Annihilus yet.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, good first issue. Look forward to kind of continuing on week by week as we go through this. So we will see issue 2 next week. So, all right. So our volume 106 in the books. So again, remind your listeners that we will go live on Friday for our big review of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Brent and I are seeing it on Thursday. Brent will be seeing it probably one more time on Friday before the review.
That is the plan.
All right. So we hope to see you then, either live in the chat or on Saturday morning. You get to listen to it. So make sure to kind of spread that word if they, check out the review. I think we're gonna have a lot of things to say, especially with seeing what cameos made it in, what did not, what were the truth from fact and fiction on that. So
yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah. So Brent, tell people how they can follow you.
Sure, Brentak Prime on Twitter, on TikTok, and yeah, that's all of it.
All right. And we, as always, want to thank our official sponsor, gettingpricebooks.com. Use that code MarvelGUA at checkout for $2 off every single order. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Balaga. You can follow my other show, World's Finest True Believers, at Finest Believers. You can follow this show's on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you want to provide Factor Fictions, ask questions. Continue to rate and review the Marvel Alliance solo feed, GUA network feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever platform of choice may be. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. All right, Brent, post credits. As we said, even though this audio releases on the day the movie releases, let's put out there our hopes, our predictions for Multiverse of Madness. So I'm going to toss it to you. What are some of your hopes and predictions?
Well, I'm going to, I don't know where I would classify this, so I'm just going to pull it from my Factor Fiction or potential Factor Fictions. I feel like maybe we'll find out that WandaVision, that Wanda's parents that we saw in WandaVision are not her biological parents.
Okay. All right. I like that. I'm gonna pull this because this is something I've used in Factor Fiction, that Wanda. I'm gonna stick to a couple of things. I'll put a couple of things out there that I put for Factor Fiction. I'm really hoping. If you've seen it in the chat, I don't want to know it. I don't want to see it.
I just switched off of the chat when we started this conversation.
I know. I want that fun confirmation of maybe that Professor X is from the animated universe. That's gonna be really cool. Wanda at the end is not. They're not going to kill her off. They're not. Sorry, just no. They're not. She's going to disappear. They'll come back. I mean, but those are some big ones. I do not think a Tom Cruise cameo is there. I don't. I don't see Superior Man. Thanks, Nelson. Thank you for joining us.
I think it's very possible that we will get. How do I put this? Some allusions to the Fantastic Four. I feel like we might get our first, it was rumored a long time ago that maybe there'd be a member of the Illuminati being a variant or something. I feel like that's very plausible.
Yeah. I will like to see, and again, this is just a simple, just look at the last trailer you and I reviewed at that point, the last one we saw. And I think I'm going to look forward to Wanda wrecking and owning and destroying the Illuminati.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I mean, we know Patrick Stewart's in it, right? Like nobody's surprised at that. So there is a version of Professor X. I just said that we may find out that Wanda's parents that we saw in WandaVision are not her biological parents. Mm-hmm. So, Magneto, do you think maybe anything alluding to him at all? Not necessarily one of our past actors, but just some reference to Magneto being a parent.
I want to, but I'm going to say no for that one. I think the closest we get is, I don't know if Magneto's going to be the other. I'm thinking maybe another mutant, but if all we get is Patrick Stewart being the only quote unquote confirmed movement, I'm not going to be upset.
I was thinking about saying, like, at one time I thought the Eternals might be the first time we'd hear the word mutant. Mm-hmm. Almost everything I've been thinking about, like really thinking about, like, yeah, it'd be funny and a good time if like Chris Evans showed up as the Human Torch, right? Like that'd be funny. But do I really expect it? I don't know if I'm willing to go that far. But like with Wanda, like we know she's supposed to be a major player. And
Yeah.
so I've been thinking about her a lot. The retcon coming where we hear that she is a mutant. I think that's on the table.
Oh yeah, I will fully agree with that. Especially, I would love to hear the reverse mutants instead of no more mutants. We get the reverse of that. Yeah, it's if I were to do a pie in the sky kind of cameo that I just hope for, I just like I'm calling this cool ranch out there, tinfoil hat. I'm going. We're gonna get a Ghost Rider. I would love it. I'm just gonna put it out there. Maybe I'll will it to happen. I don't care if it doesn't happen, but I just love the idea.
That's right. I respect that. But I got to ask the question: Are you? Let's say it was up to you. You get a pick.
I get it.
Do you want an existing one of our past Ghost Riders we've had, either across Agents of Shield or the Nicolas Cage movies, or would you want a new person putting on that fire skull?
I like. Are you talking about like the person who's in this movie is named our new Ghost Rider?
Sure. Yeah.
No, I don't think that. I just think that we're just gonna have Ghost Rider.
Okay.
Just
so we won't necessarily know.
Johnny Blaze as if it's gonna be. Yeah, I say the bike.
Will it be Nicolas Cage?
No.
Do you want it to be Nicolas Cage? Would you pick Nicolas Cage?
I would pick Nicolas Cage as long as we get the redoing of him peeing fire.
every time.
Every time. That is the only way that if he's coming back, I want a redo of that.
Okay.
What about you? You pick your out there cameo that you just would love to see.
Oh man, that's so tough. Hugh Jackman. I'll go with Hugh Jackman. Okay. Do I think it's plausible? Sure. Probable? No, I don't think it's probable at all. Yeah. Maybe I don't know. There is one other character though that before we go, like, if you've got more, go for him. But when you're done, I have one more for you that we got to bring up. Okay, Mephisto. I'm being serious. Mephisto. Like, I feel like after everything, Mephisto. Like, do we think that Mephisto will finally be #confirmed?
It's Sam Raimi and it's horror. I wouldn't put it past him, but for all joking aside, no.
Yep, I'll go fiction on that as well.
I think we're waiting. But, you know what? It's going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be a wild ride. The stuff I've heard, I mean, listen to Phase Zero today, the non-spoiler reactions.
I skipped their non-spoiler reaction.
Their non-spoiler reactions, I will say nothing. They did a very good job. They stuck to their words on that one. I think the only thing that they said is, you get Raimi in this one, and he does lean into his horror. This is not something you're going to take. You would take your younger ones too, they said.
So we'll see where I'm at with that, because like one of the scenes I struggle with, like in Spider-Man 2, is like the super cheesy thing where the octopus tentacles go crazy and start killing everybody. And so we'll see. Like, that was always my concern with him, is like he can do amazing superhero work, but I am just not a horror person, and he very much is. So we'll see.
I don't think you'll get Evil Dead, but I think you're definitely going to see probably a little bit more horror than we've seen before. But I think right. America Chavez, I'm looking forward to seeing her introduction. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And but yeah, so we will see you on Friday night. The rest of you will see whenever you download the episode, starting on Saturday morning. So good luck out there. We'll see you on the other side of the multiverse.
Don't spoil the madness.